Hello, everyone. This is Nayiri from Low Carbon Fasting. Our guest today has a bachelor's in occupational therapy from Colorado State University. She has a master's degree from the University of New Mexico. She is an accredited metabolic health practitioner. She also has doctorate in health science and over 40 years of experience as an occupational therapist in pediatrics, intensive care, and adult physical rehabilitation. And her emphasis has been on, and still is, I think, on neurology and neurosurgery rehabilitation.
Right.
She's she's a professor at a few schools. I only have Kirkland College of Osteopathic Medicine here. Dr. Melanie Tidman, welcome to Low Carbon Fasting.
Oh, thank you, Nayiri. It's so good to be on your podcast. I feel very honored. And of course, I love talking about the things that I'm doing. Yes, have a doctorate in health science. I teach for 4 universities, doctoral programs. I teach doctoral students how to do research. I'm the director of clinical research for the Colorado Parkinson Foundation. I'm also the Research Academy Chair for the new Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners Research Academy. Golly, what else am I doing? I'm a metabolic health practitioner. I have private patients that I work with using telehealth. Let's see, I'm conducting research not only in Parkinson's right now, but also in metabolic health and osteoporosis. So yeah, lots of things going on.
Melanie, you have endless energy. Where does it come from? Where does it?
Well, I'll tell you where.
Okay.
I've been on a very strict ketogenic diet for almost 12 years. It revolutionized my health, brought me back from some fairly severe and awful health conditions. And, it really transformed my life. Plus, I work out, I power lift. I also teach aerobic dance classes as a volunteer to seniors. Let's see, I volunteer in my church. We do mission work. I mean, you name it. It's just all of it comes together to just motivate and empower me to just, help others.
So 12 years ago is fairly recent. So
Right.
how did you discover the ketogenic lifestyle, or in fact, a low carbohydrate diet? Um,
Exactly.
no
So,
one was talking, not many people were talking about it, even 10 years ago. When I started
right,
in 2015, there was no support for people like me who have type 1 diabetes, for example. There wasn't much
right.
information out there.
Right. So, I always like to refer to this term that Gary Taubes always said that a lot of us come to this lifestyle via a conversion experience. So I had always been a health nut, vegetarian, exercised. I did all of that and got sicker and sicker and fatter and more medications. And in 2013 had my moment. Actually, it was more than a moment. It was months of severe seizure-like episodes, and no one could figure out what was going on. I went to 7 specialists. They didn't know. So they ended up sending me to Mayo Clinic, and at Mayo Clinic, they found a brain tumor. And they also said, you might want to do something about your diet. So, of course, being who I am, I came home, and right then I kind of was led to these videos for the low carb symposium in South Africa in Cape Town. That was 2013. 14, I believe. And I watched every one. Talk about binge watching. I did the whole thing and read every book that had been published. And I just went cold turkey on a very low carb, ketogenic, more like the epilepsy diets, 4-to-1. Um, and within 6 months, I was off all my medications. And with a year, I didn't have any more medical conditions and the tumor was gone. So I really feel like it kind of saved my life. And based on that, I got really excited about helping others to live this lifestyle.
And the tumor hasn't made an appearance again,
No,
right? 10 years.
no.
That's
In fact,
incredible.
it's kind of amazing because for many years I suffered from severe fibromyalgia. So whenever I would exercise, it would practically lay me low for a few days. And I was on CPAP with severe sleep apnea. I had restless, like you name it, I had it. And of course, I don't have any of that anymore, and I'm not on any medications. I'm 68 years old, and I feel like I'm healthier than I ever was in my 30s.
And you look very healthy for
Oh, thank you.
68. In fact, you look much younger than 68 too.
Ooh, I like hearing that.
Well, I mean, you've got the look of health. There, you're thriving. I can see it in your face.
You know, it's great because not only is it the diet, but it's the exercise, but also, you know what I think a big part is too, is serving others. That's where I get my energy, helping others. I also volunteer in my community and helping seniors to get healthy by exercising. I just feel like it's all together. It's a package, it's a lifestyle. So, yes, diet's important. It is. Exercise is important. Service to others is important. And then I'm also investigating, this is sort of a new exciting area for me, the function of the microbiome and the use of probiotics in combination with this ketogenic approach. So there's so many things to learn.
So, so when the ketogenic diet worked wonders for you personally,
Mhm.
how or when, or in fact, the how is even important too. So how did you then decide to implement that in your occupational therapy practice?
So it was obvious to me that I needed to read the research.
Mm.
I had not read very much of the research on ketones and what they were and how they work. So I did a deep dive into the research and found an incredible amount of research for neurological conditions. Of course, I'd worked with people with Parkinson's for my whole career. And what I discovered was we really don't have many alternative treatments for people with Parkinson's. We have medications which help the motor symptoms, but there's so much more to Parkinson's than motor symptoms. I like to use Dr. Matt Phillips in New Zealand. I like to use his illustration of the iceberg. I think it really shows that a lot of conditions have symptoms at the top of the iceberg. Yeah, there's tremor in Parkinson's and maybe some gait abnormalities. But then the largest part of the iceberg beneath the surface are things like metabolic health and insulin resistance and your diet and lifestyle. And then he also has that foundation of the iceberg, which is your mitochondrial health. I didn't know anything about mitochondria. So I have just been really diving into the research. back in 2018, I knew some members on the board of the Colorado Parkinson Foundation. They were family friends. And I happened to be talking to a couple of them one day about health, and they said, you know, we're all falling apart. Our health is terrible. And at that point, I had been on the ketogenic diet since 2014. So 2014 to 18, I had seen the benefits and I had read the research and I taught them about the diet and they went on it and they all got better and they all got off meds and they all were just improving. And so the board of the Parkinson Foundation of Colorado got together and said, we want you to do research in Parkinson's disease using the ketogenic approach, and we will fund it. So since 2018, I have been doing studies for the foundation, and we have 5 published studies so far, and I'm recruiting for study number 6 right now that I'd love to tell you about.
Tell us about the
Oh,
studies. I'll put some of the links below in the
beautiful.
description, but tell us about the new one too.
Okay, wonderful. So my other studies have been just using the diet, and we've been testing things like symptoms, metabolic health, all the metabolic health markers that we test, surveys on quality of life, anxiety, depression, right? So the board really wanted me to do a crossover trial. I'd never done one. I thought crossover trials are great because you take the same group of people through the different interventions and you compare them to themselves. In essence, they become their own control group. So I am recruiting for a study. It is 8 weeks on the standard American diet. I do baseline and testing at 8 weeks. I test biomarkers, symptom scales. There's no intervention. They just do what they do. Phase 2 is 8 weeks on their regular diet, just adding daily MCT oil. And we're building up to Dr. Bruce Fife's protocol of 3 to 5 tablespoons a day. Now, that phase is based on some research by Stephen Cunnane, who is doing ketone research in neurodegeneration. And he's kind of settled on that 3 to 4 tablespoons a day of MCT to bring those ketones up. And he's seeing some amazing results, especially on things like cognition, response speed. His testing is a lot in Alzheimer's disease, but he's also having some good relevant research to Parkinson's. And then, of course, Dom D'Agostino has been testing ketones and their neuroprotective attributes. And so that really fits with that phase 2 that I'm doing now. The same group, phase 3, goes on a full-blown 70, 20, 10, or 75, 25 ketogenic diet with the added MCT oil. And I do their testing before and after. Between each phase is a 4-week washout period because that's kind of what you do with crossover trials. And I'm excited about the results to see what does the same group do through these 3 different interventions. What are their health biomarkers like? What are their symptoms like? And we're targeting not only their Parkinson's symptoms, but sleep, fatigue, and cognition. So we're testing all of those things. All of those things are extremely huge in Parkinson's. Bless their hearts, they have horrible sleep. Their fatigue is off the charts. So So this is the crossover trial that I'm recruiting for right now. I'm going to finish recruiting by May of 25, and then I hope to publish this. It would be great to publish this in our new Journal of Metabolic Health for the SMHP. So I'm hoping to publish in 26.
It'd be exciting to see it published. So let me just double check. So you're looking for people with diagnosed
Right.
Parkinson's disease, but at what
Exactly.
stages? Because you will have a variation,
Exactly. Oh, that's a good point. All stages.
all
I
stages.
want people in all stages. I have people who were just newly diagnosed in the study. I have people who are at stage 4 in the study. There are 5 stages. And as long as, and even in stage 5, even though they have some fairly significant swallowing problems at that point, we can make some adaptations in the ketogenic diet so that they can be able to comply with the diet. Obviously, things like steak are going to be a little hard for them, but there's so many alternatives for people to stay on the ketogenic diet and have the foods prepared in a way that they can chew and swallow them. So all stages, they do need the diagnosis, any age. And I have to always make the point that Parkinson's is not an older person's disease anymore. I've had people in my studies who were diagnosed in their 30s. So all ages, all stages.
So yeah, that makes sense because if a large proportion of global population
Right,
have some sort of metabolic disease, then, and we're seeing type 2 diabetics in teenagers.
right.
And so why wouldn't we see Parkinson's in 20 or 30-year-olds? It's no
Exactly.
longer even Alzheimer's now, people are saying, I mean, we're seeing Alzheimer's start, in 30-year-olds. And so I think it comes down to the metabolic sort of dysfunction.
Yes. I really believe the same thing. I'm so glad you brought up global statistics. I looked some up this morning, so I was current. So, worldwide, there are 10 million people living with Parkinson's disease. And in the US, nearly 90,000 people per year are diagnosed with Parkinson's. Now, just 10 years ago in the US, there were only 50,000 people per year diagnosed with Parkinson's. So you can see that massive progression in the incidence of this disease. I believe, as you mentioned, that Parkinson's has metabolic origins. In fact, we're really finding out through this microbiome research that I have been doing that often neurodegeneration begins in the gut many years before you ever get your first symptom. And we know that the gut communicates with the brain. It's called the gut-brain axis, and that the abnormal proteins that are formed in the gut as a result of damaged microbiome actually end up in the brain. And so that connection tells me that if we could intervene as metabolic health practitioners years before, when people begin to have even GI symptoms, can we prevent neurodegeneration? It's a huge area of research. It's just exploded since 2022. I've only reviewed 60 studies so far, and that's just the beginning of really learning about how metabolic health affects neurological health.
So you've been talking about Parkinson's, but what other conditions do people have
Okay.
who may benefit from the ketogenic therapy?
Exactly. So in my metabolic health practice that I do as a volunteer, I have women in their that are older than 50 who have metabolic syndrome and osteoporosis. I have women that have significant gut issues, celiac and irritable bowel and chronic colitis. I'm working with them as well. I have patients with cardiovascular disease, strokes, and other neurological conditions, MS. So I'm seeing really the wide variety, and my therapeutic intervention of choice is to first begin reducing the processed foods
Yeah.
in their diet and the sugars.
Mhm.
The next step would be incremental therapeutic carbohydrate reduction. So, I'm a type A person. I can go cold turkey, boom. But a lot of people really have to wean down slowly and be able to handle a full-blown ketogenic diet once they get there. I wanted to mention the beauty of the crossover trial I'm doing is that phase 2, they're taking in the MCT, they're building ketones.
Mhm.
And what they're finding is their appetite is more controlled. They don't have these sweet cravings. And by the time they get to the ketogenic diet, they're ready for it. They like, I don't even want that stuff. So that's what I do in my private practice. I begin by just adding, okay, let's take out the processed food and let's just add some daily MCT oil for a
Mm.
few weeks, see how you feel. And then incrementally, I build them up onto a lower carbohydrate diet. Now, I have ended up being a carnivore. I'm way over there.
Mhm.
And I think people find their sweet spot, if you will, in terms of how much carbohydrate they can take out. Now, I also have most of my people, I would say, also have type 2 diabetes.
Mhm.
It just follows with these other conditions. Quite a few of my patients with Parkinson's have type 2 diabetes, and I believe it's because that sugar, that glucose gives them a hit to their brain that it's not getting anymore because their dopamine is so depleted. Dopamine's that feel good kind of motivation sort of neurochemical. So a lot of times their diabetes goes away while I'm working on their Parkinson's. That's the beauty of this approach. Now, some people are eating 50 to 80 grams of carbohydrates a day, and some are eating 10 grams. It just really depends on what we're working on and what your individualized carbohydrate tolerance is. And as a type 1, you know a lot about that.
Mhm. It's important you said that. This is why we cannot have a diet plan. These are your weekly meals. Here you go and stick. And it's just not
Exactly.
practical enough because it varies from person to person. Two questions now about that
Yep.
study specifically. Now, MCT oil, why MCT oil specifically? Obviously, what about, I mean, obviously they're medium chain oils. Does it
Right.
have to be MCT oils? Also, instead of MCT oils, um, have you tried exogenous ketone supplements?
Oh, great question. So, why MCT oil? So, I give my patients a choice. MCT oil has more C8, C10 in it, and those are forms of medium chain triglycerides that translate to blood ketones more rapidly. Now, regular coconut oil that you buy at the grocery store, especially if it's cold pressed and unprocessed, has some C8, C10, but a lower amount. But some of my folks do just fine on it.
Yeah.
Now, the coconut oil has that coconut taste. Some people like it, some people don't. Some people can't afford the MCT oil. I get it. It is a little higher priced, but I kind of give them a choice. And the reason I do that is I provide my research participants with a Keto Mojo blood glucose and ketone meter, and they test every morning and it's uploaded to my portal. And based on what I see their ketone levels doing, then we adjust their intake of the MCT oil. Some of them who are just doing plain old coconut oil are getting into nutritional ketosis and are able to maintain it. It really depends on so many factors. One is the state of your microbiome. Do you have a healthy enough gut that can convert the MCT or the coconut oil into the needed ketones? Is MCT oil causing you to have diarrhea where coconut oil may not, or vice versa? So I love what you said about individualizing and customizing because everyone is so different. We are uniquely made. And so we can adjust the diet. I can adjust the MCT oil or coconut oil, depending upon what their blood is showing me every morning. So that's another way. I'm a big proponent of testing. And of course, in your world, testing is essential.
But there's the affordability element too. And
Right.
for example, exogenous ketones, which we'll come to because
Oh,
I asked why not exogenous ketones. They're a
right.
lot more expensive, for example.
Which is precisely why I don't use them. And so I'm one of these practitioners that I want to do the most natural approaches where they live. If they can go to the grocery store and pick up what they need, I'm all about that. I have been contacted by companies who make the exogenous ketones, and I have tried some myself. They're quite expensive. Most of my patients can't even afford the meat that I'm asking them to buy for their diet. And they don't taste great. They really don't. And I just want to give them something simple, something accessible. I'm all about accessibility and something that they feel like they can afford. So you're right. I don't use the exogenous for that reason. Now, I'm not saying that exogenous ketones aren't valuable. They are. And if you're trying to keep your ketones up to control seizures, then by all means, if that's the way you do it, I think that's wonderful. And I'm so glad the companies are making them, and there's a lot of research being done in them. I love Stephen Cunane's work purely because he's using natural stuff and he's using MCT oil to test and he's finding some significant results. So I want to use the most natural approaches I can. So thank you for asking me about that.
We'll come back to your other research on
Okay.
osteoporosis. Now,
Okay.
show me a woman above 50 or in perimenopause, menopause, who's not on the verge of full-blown osteoporosis. I mean, I was too, and that's why I started weightlifting. I started taking, well, I started eating meat because I was vegetarian. So
Right.
I wanted to prevent that. I wanted
Yes.
anything I could to prevent that. So I'm really interested in that research. Before that, while we're in the Parkinson's kind of area, can you share
Uh-huh.
some success stories? Where,
Absolutely. I have a million, but I'll share two. The biggest thing that it was just such an inspiring story. Sometimes I feel like I am privy to some miracles. You wouldn't even think that this approach could be that powerful. Food is powerful. So I was contacted by a mother through the foundation who had a 32-year-old son who was advanced stage Parkinson's. See, Parkinson's isn't for older people. I have in the Facebook forum that I'm a member of, there's some 25-year-olds that have just been diagnosed. So he had Parkinson's. He had other comorbidities as well, but his Parkinson's had progressed to where he could no longer swallow. And his doctors had put him on hospice. He was in bed, unable to speak, unable to sit up, unable to swallow. So the doctors basically put him on hospice, sent him home to die. The mother contacted me and said, "Isn't there anything we can do? We're losing him." And I said, "I don't have any idea if this will help you, but here are my ideas." They had to find a doctor, first of all, who would put in a peg feeding tube, which is, it just goes into the stomach. It allows you to be able to administer good hydration, good medication management. And I found for them a ketogenic formula that had MCT oil in it. They found somebody to put in a peg. They started giving him this oil and this formula, which also had good protein sources in it. It's very similar to breast milk, which has very little carbohydrate. It's 70% fat, 20 to 25% protein. And that's what this formula was. Within a few weeks, it was just a couple of weeks, this young man is talking and swallowing and sitting up and eating and working on his computer. It was rather miraculous, actually, that this mother didn't give up on him. She fought to get him the treatment he needed. And lo and behold, I believe it was the good hydration, because he was very dehydrated. If you can't swallow, you can't hydrate. Good nutrition. He was very malnourished. And good medication management. I'm not saying that medications, you can just stop them. No, they're going to need their synthetic dopamine. But it really brought this young man back. And it just inspired me that this mother would just go that extra mile. Another story that I love to share is a gentleman who was 53. He had been a chef, he was an engineer, he had a kitchen garden, he did things like adapt recipes using these engineering concepts. I mean, it was like just brilliant man. But he was in later stage Parkinson's. He was also morbidly obese, well over 300 pounds, and he had significant metabolic health problems. He had high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, depression, anxiety, restless leg syndrome, and he had a huge amount of pain. People with Parkinson's suffer a lot of pain. It's almost like the central nervous system has been hypersensitized. And so he could only walk about 10 feet to his bathroom and back. He was in bed most of the day. When he contacted me to participate in my 24-week study that I did for the foundation that was published in 2024, I believe, he totally understood the diet from the get-go. He said, "Oh, I'm just going to throw out everything that's not a fat or a protein, and that's what I'm going to eat." And he just went cold turkey, full bore, right on the diet. Within, I don't know, a month, he's walking around his home to his backyard. He's using a walker, yes, but he's walking. Within 12 weeks, and he was, I didn't mention he was also fully diabetic. He was on diabetic medications. His glucose, I think his hemoglobin A1C was 12 or 15. it was just, he had so many things. Anyway, within 12 weeks, his biomarkers were all normal. He had dropped his hemoglobin A1C to 6, so it was working its way down out of the pre-diabetic range. He had lost a bunch of weight. I think he lost 60 pounds in the first 12 weeks. He began to wean off all of his medications, his anxiety medications, his depression medications, his blood pressure medication. We were deprescribing medications like crazy. His pain, he went from 3 pain medications to one, and he lowered the dose on it, and his pain levels were more like 2 out of 10 instead of 8 out of 10. He was starting to walk around his neighborhood. By the time 24 weeks arrived, he was able to walk a few miles. He was working out at a gym. He continued to lose weight. He continued to improve. He had some tremor still with his Parkinson's, okay, but his medications that he was taking for Parkinson's were better controlled. It was again kind of a miraculous, and I see this story over and over and over. These are not isolated incidents at all.
That was so inspiring. That was so inspiring. And in fact, if you are, what stage is it, 4 or 5 stages, Parkinson's? Uh,
Five
Five
stages.
stages. So if you are,
Mhm.
say, in stage 4 or 5, it's
Right.
it's it's a miserable existence. So you
It
have
is.
nothing to lose if you try. Just try for 3 months the ketogenic diet and see how you feel.
Exactly. And that's what I tell everybody all the time. I tell them, I don't know what this is going to do for you, but why not? Why would you not work on your diet, maybe some exercise? Let's think about adding the MCT oil. Let's be sure your hydration is good. None of us drink water enough. Let's be sure you've got good electrolytes. Let's be sure you've got some good supplement regimens. And let's be sure that your Parkinson's medications are at the right level. So it's a comprehensive approach, which is why I love being a metabolic health practitioner, because you can combine, I was an OT for 45 years, and it was a perfect segue into being a metabolic health practitioner because OTs help people with their lifestyle, with their exercise, with stress reduction, with sleep hygiene, with nutrition to a certain extent, with accessing community resources and being independent. It just made perfect sense to me when I found the SMHP that that would be the direction I wanted to go.
I think the SMHP as a community is it's so much richer with you as a member.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind. I want to mention my work with the SMHP. I love those people. What a committed, passionate group they are. And one of my big areas, of course, as a clinical researcher, is I want to help everybody do research because we need more research in metabolic health, flooding the research literature. And so, based on a lot of the work that I do with PhD students in preparing for their research, I created for the SMHP a research academy, and it contains training modules and information. And we have a mentorship program that if you have an idea, Nayiri, that you want to do, a research idea, I connect you and pair you with a mentor, and they help walk you through that entire process. I also teach a journal club, and we look at research literature, and I teach members how to analyze a research article. Is it a credible study? What was the data collection like? What were the results? Do you think this is a high level of evidence or a low level of evidence? So we do this sort of classroom, if you will. It's every other month or once a quarter is what it ends up being. And I teach members how to evaluate research articles for the purpose of them getting inspired to do their own research study. So it's quite a program. Took me 9 months to develop it, and I always say it was rather like having a baby. The baby has been born, and the academy's up and running, and we already have some member projects that are underway. The members that I'm really seeking to help are these providers in rural countries, rural states, rural locations that don't have any university affiliation. They don't even know where to start. They have tons of patient data, lots of it.
Mm.
And what they're doing is working, but I want to help them to move that towards, let's analyze that data. Let's create a research study and let's publish it in our journal. That's sort of the end goal of all of this. So you can tell I'm kind of excited about that work. It's like my fourth full-time job, but I love it.
Well, it shows you're passionate about it, and someone had to do it because we have
Right.
a desperate need for more research on
That's
metabolic
right.
health interventions. So I'm pleased you're doing it. I really should sign up to
Yeah.
one of those
You
classes.
really should. There are 10 training modules. I spent a lot of time creating them. And my son and my daughter-in-law are my editing team. So they helped me get them all put on the website. They're in the Academy page. You walk through each training module. I train you and teach you how to do each step in the process. So it's rather like being in a university where you're learning these skills. So yes, it's very exciting, and I'm just really hoping it will grow and people will get very into doing research in our area.
Thank you for doing that. Yeah, I should go and have a look at the
You
website.
should, and you should do a study, and I'll be happy to help you with it.
Oh, I'd be happy. I mean, I really would be happy to do something, but we'll see when the time is right. So I will look into it.
That's
Thank you so
right.
much. Let's talk about osteoporosis.
Okay. Another real passion of mine. I have many passions. I think that's good. My mother died from complications from osteoporosis. She had been on the traditional treatment for 30 years,
What's the
and it didn't
traditional
help her.
treatment? What is
Yeah,
it, the
the
traditional
medication.
treatment?
Well, the
Medication.
medications, the bisphosphonate medications that have so many side effects. She got all the side effects. And so the traditional treatments failed her. So I've been wanting to do a study in osteoporosis. I myself, several years ago, saw my bone density not starting to go in the direction I wanted it to go, even though I'm very, very active. So 6 years ago, when I saw that, I started powerlifting, and I'm an old lady, but I'm squatting 80 pounds. So I'm trying to get that built up to 100. That's my goal. And I really wanted to do something that helped women like me to have alternatives to having to go on the medications that frankly aren't great. They have a lot of side effects. And most of them, you can only use them for a maximum of 3 to 5 years. Well, they kept my mother on them for 30 years, and her bones were so brittle that all she had to do was step into her car and completely obliterate her ankle. It fell into multiple pieces and could never be repaired. So I feel like the ketogenic lifestyle, absolutely, we have to get your inflammation down. Inflammation is a big one in bone health, in all health, in metabolic health. We have to look at your gut microbiome. Are you absorbing the minerals that you need? Most of our foods are mineral depleted. You're not getting the type of minerals that your bones are needing. And we're all sitting every day. We're sedentary. So it's a comprehensive approach. And I'm using a bioavailable calcium mineral supplement regimen. And the company that I chose for my study has done 5 clinical studies on their supplement regimen. You don't find that kind of research support in most supplements.
Mm.
So I have been very excited about the progress that I've seen in myself. I'm now almost in the normal range for bone density at 68. So I feel like, yeah, I want to share this approach with others. I now have 4 women enrolled in the case series and am recruiting for more. So to qualify for my osteoporosis case series, you need to be female, any age, but you need to have the diagnosis of osteoporosis, which means your bone density scores, or osteopenia also. Your bone density scores need to be in the osteopenia range at minimum. And I have women in my study right now who are starting out in the 2.7, negative 2.7, negative 2.9. So they're well into the osteoporosis range. I take a baseline uh, series of blood work, which is all metabolic health blood work, and they get their baseline DEXA and TBS. So many people in the osteoporosis space are not aware that DEXAs only tell you about bone density. It's like the strength of the scaffolding.
Mm.
Okay. Well, there's a lot more to bone health than that. The TBS, the trabecular bone scan, is a test that's run with the DEXA that measures the quality of your bone and the strength of your bone. So you can kind of have density that's a little less than normal, but excellent strength and quality.
Mm.
And so what's happening is most doctors only order the DEXA. Well, that only tells you a piece of that puzzle. The DEXA plus TBS tells you more of the whole picture. Now, not every scanner in the US does both because they're quite costly,
Mm.
but every city should have at least one scanner that does both. And I love to empower women to tell their doctor, I want both. You order both. And most insurances will pay for both, especially if you already have the diagnosis of osteoporosis. So that's an area of education that I do for my research subjects. If you're a research subject of mine, you get access to my classroom. I have a metabolic classroom that I set up that has tons of information in it. You get to do this with me a lot. We Zoom a lot. I give you constant feedback on your bloods every morning through your Keto Mojo testing. You get all of that for free to be a part of my osteoporosis study.
So
So I'm
this
still recruiting for that one as well.
who's funding that study, this osteoporosis study?
So it is self-funded. And the patients don't have, the only cost they have is the meter, and I pay for that. It is approved by the Liberty University IRB. So all the studies I do have IRB approval for ethics oversight for human research. And so the osteoporosis is self-funded. I'm funding that myself. And it's going to be a case series. So who knows how many women I'll end up there. If I could have 10, that'd be awesome. But if I have 5, that's great too. And I'm really building in the diet, which is the ketogenic approach, the supplements, and weight training.
Yeah.
So they're also doing weight training and using an app that I've used for 6 years. And really, it's, I just started that study. I have women that are really excited about being a part of that study. And then when they get in the classroom, the free classroom that I set up for them, they can watch videos. I may put some of your videos in there just so they can get the information. And there's handouts and you name it, it's in there. So some of my presentations are in there. I have a very small YouTube channel, very small. I did a little talk on microbiome and making a probiotic fermented dairy at home. So again, using this natural approach. So yeah, I love my osteoporosis study as well. I feel a little like schizophrenic. So I'm working with people in my Parkinson study, working with people in my osteoporosis study. And who knows, my husband just shakes his head like, okay, what study are you going to start next? I'm always experimenting with stuff that they can do at home. So,
And why not? I'd love to see a type 1 study there. So,
oh, wouldn't that be great? Well, what's on my radar? I'm going to put this on your radar. What's on my radar? One of our members contacted us, our SMHP members, who wants to do a scoping review of ketogenics in type 1. Just look at all the literature that's out there, and there's not much, and do a scoping review. And I'm trying to get her kind of set up to start working on that. So, yes, type 1 is on my radar.
brilliant, brilliant.
Yes.
That's good to hear. Right. So, other than coming back to the neurological diseases, so other than Parkinson's, what other conditions benefit from ketogenic therapy? I think, I don't know if you mentioned Alzheimer's, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Alzheimer's for sure. That's Stephen Cunnaine's work and others. I also always like to highlight Matt Phillips' work. Matt Phillips is a doctor in New Zealand, a neurologist. He's called the metabolic neurologist. He's amazing and incredible and quite a mentor for me. He is doing Alzheimer's. He's done Parkinson's. He's doing glioblastoma, which is a terrible brain tumor. He's just always doing research on these approaches and publishing. I think he published the first randomized controlled trial in Parkinson's comparing a ketogenic diet to a low-fat diet. And he just has this vision to improve metabolic health in neurological conditions. I've also seen a ton of research on using the ketogenic approach in MS, especially relapsing remitting. Can we get MS to not relapse remit so quickly? Can we extend the time when people are doing just fine? Can we improve metabolic health, reduce inflammation? The brain is exquisitely sensitive to inflammation. And so if you have inflammation in the body, it reacts in the brain almost to a greater degree. It also has a lot to do, of course, the epilepsy research is 100 years old. We've used ketogenics in epilepsy for many years. The thing that's amazing to me is the neurologists who know nothing about the ketogenic diet. It's really, in my mind, the first line treatment for somebody with a new seizure disorder. So the research is quite strong. And I feel like we haven't even skimmed the surface. What could the ketogenic diet do for ALS, a severe neurodegenerative condition, terminal condition, terrible condition? Now, I love Chris Palmer and Georgia E. Their work in metabolic psychiatry to me is cutting edge. And why would that not make sense? Parkinson's is a neurological condition. Bipolar is a neurological condition. And so, if indeed the medications we use in mental illness sometimes are anti-epileptics that we've used in epilepsy, okay, why wouldn't that work then to prescribe a full-blown 4-to-1 ketogenic epilepsy diet in bipolar and schizophrenia? I've already seen in my 12-week and 24-week studies that are published in Parkinson's that depression and anxiety improve drastically
Mm.
on the ketogenic diet. We're feeding the brain what it needs. Stephen Cunnay's work has found that ketones are the precursor element that helps develop the myelin in your central nervous system. Myelin is essential to coat the nerves, the neurons, so that electrical activity can be conducted more efficiently. Well, it makes a lot of sense to me. There is some research also that blood ketones, beta hydroxybutyrate, is also a foundational element for the development of dopamine. Well, Parkinson's patients are lacking dopamine. So, can we build the ketones in their blood to help their substantia nigra in their brain start producing its own dopamine? I mean, these are the research questions I'm interested in. So,
That's exciting. And given
it
that
is exciting.
some forms of exercise also
Exactly.
release dopamine, perhaps
Yes.
combining some physical activity with the ketogenic therapy would, I can't see why it won't be efficient.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, not to mention that as we all get older, our muscles go completely down the tubes. And so if you're weak and you're afraid of falling and you have Parkinson's, your activity level's going to plummet. And what happens when your activity level plummets? Your gut microbiome has trouble. You get more constipation. Another thing you do is you start socially isolating. That doesn't help your depression or anxiety at all. Your relationships suffer because you don't want to do anything. You don't want to get out there. Dopamine's a motivation neurochemical. So people with Parkinson's really suffer from a lot of apathy. They just don't want to initiate anything. So I really see Chris Palmer was talking about I just watched him in a lecture, and he says it's a total change of focus where you look at how can we create things in the body that are naturally occurring and support that to influence the normal function in the brain. Makes sense to me. And plus, we were created to live in ketosis. Babies are born in ketosis. Breast milk is the perfect ketogenic food. As long as babies are breastfed, they're in ketosis. Well, what are babies doing? I love this illustration. I use it a lot. Babies are growing their brains, growing their muscles, growing their bones. It developing and learning new skills and just exploding in terms of their neurological development. And guess what? They're on the ketogenic diet as long as they're breastfed. So, I mean, neurology is neurology, biochemistry is biochemistry.
Mhm. Well, I often mention that too, that we're born in ketosis and we live
Right.
in ketosis for the first at least 6 months of our life.
Right.
until we
Right.
introduce cereals and
I know. If I'd known then what I know now, I would have raised my children very differently.
don't we all say that? I was thinking,
Oh, I know. It's like, oh my gosh. Yeah. And yet, isn't that the beauty of learning? I'm always learning and I want to always keep learning. And I want to always, I'm not ever going to retire. I don't see retirement as a goal for me. I'm going to continue to serve others and to do research and to learn and to grow and to, just be so excited about life and what wonderful things life has to offer. And I want that for my patients. Some of my poor patients are just miserable, like you said. They feel very out of control. They're very hopeless. And so if what I do with them can give them some hope, I feel like they can take control of their own health. And in your space, you're very much about that. And be advocates for their own health. And I can give them the tools to do that.
what a wonderful message to end this with. I love that positive message. Be in charge
Thank
of
you.
your health. There is always something you can do to improve your health. Always.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, I just feel very honored that you asked me to be on, and I appreciate just your enthusiasm, and the work that you're doing is crucial. And being able, you have that heart to serve, and being able to serve those with a type 1 diagnosis who don't don't have a lot of hope. They're not given hope by the traditional medical establishment. Not that they're bad, but they just don't have the training that we do. So, bravo to you as well.
Thank you so much. I'm really humbled by that. But we are all doing what we can to serve our communities. And
That's right.
it's your calling, you said, right? So this is how
Right.
I look at it too. I think you said that you mentioned that not in this podcast, but you mentioned that to Dr. Brian Lenskis. So
Yeah, I
um,
really feel like I was left on the planet.
yeah,
I have the blessing of a second chance. And so I'm going to honor God who left me here, and I'm going to serve others. And yeah, it is a calling, it's a passion. And I'm thankful that I have it. It's really it's just so exciting to see people get better and improve their lives.
it's wonderful. I'm gonna wrap this up with that beautiful message. Now, all of Dr. Tidman's links will be below. Please get in touch, and you might even become one of the study participants. So I'll make sure I put all the links below. So thank you
Beautiful.
so much, and I wish you, if you're in Colorado, it'll be lunchtime there.
Yes, getting towards there. Well, it's closer to like 10:30.
Oh,
I actually live in New Mexico and work for in Colorado. The beauty of like telehealth. I work all over the world actually. And
that's
but yes, it's a wonderful the sunny Southwest. It's
wonderful.
beautiful here.
Wonderful. So you enjoy the rest of your day while I wind down for my evening here in the UK. Thank
Thank you
you,
so
and bye
much.
for now.
You take care.
Bye-bye.